It was a cold Wednesday night in Toledo, Ohio, just past 11:00 p.m. The streets were empty, save for the odd night shift worker cutting home. Lieutenant Colonel Adrienne Wallace guided her government-issued black SUV through the quiet, the kind of vehicle that didn't beg attention but commanded it. She'd just left a late meeting 2 hours south, her mind already half on home, the steady hum of tires her only companion. Nothing erratic, no speeding, no weaving. Just routine. Sergeant. Daniel Mercer, parked in his cruiser off Reynolds Road, was starving for anything but routine. His coffee had gone flat, his patience thinner. When Adrienne's SUV rolled past, unfamiliar and official-looking, his boredom sparked into opportunity. With a flick of his lights, he swung in behind her. Adrienne pulled over without fuss. Calm, measured, her training doing the work. In the side mirror, she watched Mercer approach, flashlight cutting through the dark, his hand riding his holster. License and registration. No greeting, no explanation. She rolled the window halfway, hands where he could see. "Officer, may I ask why I'm being stopped?" Drifting lanes. No signal. Looked impaired. His tone had an edge, like he wanted her to argue. Her brow rose. "I wasn't." She passed her ID and registration. "This is a government vehicle. I'm a federal employee." Mercer gave the ID a glance, smirk tugging. "Military, huh? Doesn't put you above the law. Step out." Adrienne's jaw set, but her voice stayed even. "On what grounds? I've complied. I haven't been drinking." "Step out," he snapped, louder now, leaning in close, hand still hovering over his weapon. She switched on her phone camera, voice turning sharp steel. "For the record, this is being recorded." A flicker crossed his face, hesitation, but ego sealed it over. "Out. Now." She stepped out, posture straight as parade rest. Civilian clothes couldn't hide the bearing of someone who'd seen more than this man could imagine. Under the streetlight, she walked his line, crisp, flawless. Not a stumble, not a slur. Still, he slapped her with a citation. Failure to maintain lane. Adrienne took it without a word, slid back into her SUV, and drove off into the night. But she knew it wasn't finished. That scrap of paper in her hand was about to spark a firestorm. Sergeant Daniel Mercer wasn't just another cop. 15 years on the job had carved him into a man who lived on authority. The badge wasn't a shield to him. It was a crown. He'd stared down barricaded suspects, worked bloody pileups, and cultivated a reputation that made rookies stand straighter when he entered a room. Mercer liked that. He didn't take questions. He gave orders. In his world, the badge was the last word. At the station, the stop went into the system like a blip on a radar. Failure to maintain lane, possible impairment, no arrest, done. He logged it with the same effort he used to crumple a receipt. In the break room, tearing open a bag of chips, he smirked at Officer Diaz. "Pulled over some woman last night. Tried flashing a government ID like it was supposed to mean something." Diaz paused mid-sip of his coffee. "Name?" Mercer shrugged. "Wallace. Adrienne, I think." Diaz lowered his cup slowly. "Lieutenant Colonel Adrienne Wallace?" Mercer chuckled. "Yeah. Why, you know her." "Everyone knows her," Diaz said, his voice edged with respect. "She lectured at the academy, Bronze Star, 2 deployments. Runs logistics at Fort Wayne. She's not someone you brush off." Mercer snorted, brushing the crumbs from his uniform. "Doesn't matter who she is. Out there, I'm in charge." He said it like fact, but Diaz's caution left a splinter in his confidence. Mercer never checked the body cam footage. To him, it was over, buried under paperwork and bravado. He couldn't have been more wrong. Adrienne Wallace wasn't the kind to raise her voice. 22 years in uniform had trained her to value restraint over noise. But this wasn't just about her. It was about the cadets she mentored, the civilians she'd watched get dismissed, and the black women she'd seen forced to swallow their pride to avoid escalation. This time, she wasn't swallowing it. By morning, the complaint was filed. Not just with Internal Affairs, but with the Inspector General's office. Her phone footage was already with her attorney. Another copy routed quietly up the chain of command. She didn't embellish, didn't editorialize. The video spoke for itself. At Fort Wayne, her aide, Sergeant Daniels, watched the footage in silence. "Ma'am, are you ready for what this could turn into?" Adrienne's gaze was steady. "I'm not chasing headlines. I'm demanding accountability." Her lawyer, Delaney Price, saw it too. The stop wasn't just bad policing. It was possibly a federal violation, given her status and the lack of cause. If Mercer wanted a fight, Adrienne was ready, and this time she wasn't standing alone. 3 weeks later, Sergeant Daniel Mercer stood in the courthouse parking lot, clutching a manila envelope. Plaintiff, Lieutenant Colonel Adrienne Wallace. Charges: unlawful detainment, intimidation, abuse of authority. He gave a short, sharp laugh. "This won't stick," he muttered. Inside, Captain Redding wasn't laughing. With blinds drawn, his voice was flat steel. "She's not just another driver, Dan. She's a decorated combat veteran with a spotless record. And she's got you on video. 2 angles, yours and hers." Mercer bristled. "I never laid a hand on her. I followed procedure." "You escalated before you even asked her name," Redding snapped. "That's not procedure. That's ego. The precinct felt it too." Whispers in the locker room, quick glances in the halls. Mercer wasn't the wolf anymore. He was bleeding, and everyone smelled it. Court was worse. Adrienne didn't just attend. She commanded the room. Full dress uniform, ribbons and medals gleaming, posture unshakable. The gallery, cops, soldiers, civilians, fell silent as she entered. Mercer's smirk faltered. On the stand, her voice was calm, unwavering. She laid out the stop with surgical precision. Her compliance, his aggression. The footage rolled, first her phone, then his body cam. The flashlight in her face, his hand never straying from his holster, his voice clipped and hostile. The evidence was undeniable. Mercer's attorney tried to find daylight. "Isn't it possible Officer Mercer was simply following protocol?" Adrienne's eyes held steady. "No." "Then why record the stop?" Her answer cut through the room. "Because silence doesn't protect us. The truth does." You didn't need a jury verdict to feel the shift. The room had already judged. 3 days later, Judge Cynthia Morales read the decision in favor of Lieutenant Colonel Adrienne Wallace. Violation of constitutional rights, unlawful stop and detainment. Damages, $35,000. Ruling forwarded to the Department of Justice, and Toledo PD Mercer's attorney whispered about appeals, but the weight was already there, pressing him down. He walked out to a wall of cameras, ducking his face as questions rained. Adrienne left differently, a single vibration on her phone. "Verdict in your favor, case closed." Her lawyer leaned in. "You could have gone for more." Adrienne shook her head, eyes steady. It was never about the money. It was about making him think twice. Mercer was on administrative leave, his once iron career dangling by a thread. The badge that had shielded him for 15 years now felt more like a crack in his armor than protection. At Fort Wayne, Lieutenant Colonel Adrienne Wallace slipped back into her rhythm, training troops, overseeing missions, leading with the steady strength she was known for. She didn't chase headlines. She chased change. 2 months later, she stood before a room of new recruits. "How many of you believe a uniform guarantees respect?" A few tentative hands lifted. Adrienne gave a small nod. "Respect isn't automatic," she said. "It's earned day after day, choice after choice." She told them about the stop, not to draw sympathy, but to sharpen perspective. "I could have shouted. I could have let it slide. Instead, I documented. I filed. I showed up. That officer thought his badge made him untouchable until he realized real authority isn't stitched onto fabric. It's how you carry yourself. That's leadership." The room went still, the kind of silence that meant her words had struck deep. Adrienne stepped down, not for applause, but because the lesson had landed. Authority without accountability is just weakness in disguise. When you see wrong, don't look away. Silence shelters the guilty. Courage protects everyone else.